The alarm bells rang through the bridge of the galactic trade vessel Harmony's Edge. Captain Zexthai lifted his scaled head from the navigation console, his four eyes blinking in sequence as he processed the incoming signal. The distress beacon was weak but clear, coming from a sector that should have been empty space. "What do we have, Officer Kryn?" the captain asked, his translator device converting his clicks and whistles into standard galactic common. The young communications officer, a member of the insect-like Veltari species, buzzed nervously. "Unknown vessel, Captain. Small craft appears to be damaged. The signal is different, not in our database." Captain Zexthai moved his long neck to get a better view of the main screen. The ship that appeared was indeed strange. It was smaller than most galactic vessels, with a design that seemed almost primitive. Sharp angles instead of the smooth curves that most civilized species preferred. The hull looked like it was made of basic metal alloys. "Life signs?" the captain asked. "Positive, sir. 5 beings aboard. The atmosphere readings suggest they breathe oxygen and nitrogen, similar to Class 7 planets." The captain's tail swished thoughtfully. In his 40 years of space travel, he had encountered many species. First contact was always exciting, but also dangerous. The Galactic Council had strict rules about how to handle new civilizations. "Bring us alongside, but keep our shields up. Prepare the rescue bay and call Dr. Quinara to the bridge." Within minutes, the ship's xenobiologist arrived. Dr. Quinara was a Corvani like the captain, but smaller and more delicate. Her scales were a lighter blue, and she wore the white robes of a scientist. "A new species?" she asked, her eyes bright with curiosity. "It appears so. Their ship is badly damaged. Engine failure, from what our scanners can tell." On the main screen, they could see the strange vessel more clearly now. It was definitely in trouble. Part of the hull was blackened, and there were small pieces of debris floating around it. But the ship was still intact, and the life signs remained strong. "Incoming transmission," Officer Kryn announced. "Put it through." The screen flickered, and suddenly they were looking at something none of them had ever seen before. The being was tall and narrow, with pale skin and hair that grew from the top of its head. It had only 2 eyes, both facing forward, and a small mouth. The creature looked fragile, but its expression was calm. "This is Commander Jake Harrison of the Pioneer 7, the being said. Its voice was strange, with sounds that the translator struggled to process. "We've had a major engine failure and are requesting assistance." Captain Zexthai stepped forward. "This is Captain Zexthai of the Harmony's Edge. We are responding to your distress call. Are you injured?" "No injuries." "Captain, just stuck out here with a dead engine. We have 5 crew members aboard. We'd be grateful for any help you can offer." The captain was surprised by how calm this Jake Harrison seemed. Most beings in distress were panicked or desperate. This human, as the translator had labeled the species, seemed almost relaxed. "We will take you aboard our vessel and transport you to the nearest station. Please prepare for docking." "Understood. We'll need to bring some equipment with us. Basic survival gear and our emergency toolkit." Dr. Quinara looked puzzled. "Toolkit?" Jake Harrison smiled, showing small white teeth. "Just some basic tools. Standard equipment for any space mission. Nothing fancy." Within an hour, the rescue was complete. The 5 humans were brought aboard the Harmony's Edge through the docking bay. Captain Zexthai and Dr. Quinara were waiting to greet them. The humans were indeed strange-looking creatures. They all had the same basic shape, but came in different sizes and colors. Besides Commander Harrison, there was a female called Lisa Murphy who seemed to be their engineer. The other 3 introduced themselves as Ryan Cole, Karen Bell, and Mike Torres. What struck the captain most was how they moved. They were graceful but seemed ready to react quickly to anything. Their eyes were always moving, taking in details of the ship and crew. But they were also friendly, smiling and asking questions about the other species they met. "We really appreciate this," Lisa Murphy said to Dr. Quinara. "Our families will be worried sick when we don't report in on schedule." "Families?" the doctor asked. Many species in the galaxy didn't have strong family bonds. "Wives, husbands, children," Jake Harrison explained. "People who care about us back home." This concept seemed to fascinate Dr. Quinera. She made notes on her electronic pad while asking more questions about human social structures. The most interesting moment came when the humans insisted on bringing their toolkit aboard. It was a large metal box, sealed, and obviously heavy. Two of them had to carry it together. "What exactly is in there?" Captain Zexthai asked. "Just basic tools," Mike Torres replied. "Wrenches, screwdrivers, that sort of thing. We never go anywhere without them." The captain's security officer, a large Braxton warrior named Vrakmore, scanned the box with his sensors. No energy signatures, appears to be primitive metal implements. Primitive? Lisa Murphy raised her eyebrows. "Well, I guess they are pretty simple, but you'd be surprised what you can do with simple tools." The humans were given quarters in the guest section of the ship. They settled in quickly, adapting to the ship's systems with remarkable speed, but they insisted on keeping their toolkit with them, storing it carefully in their shared living space. Dr. Quinera ran her initial scans and tests. The humans were physically weaker than most galactic species, but showed excellent reflexes and problem-solving abilities. Their brains were active in ways she had never seen before, with multiple regions working together constantly. "Fascinating," she told the captain later. "They seem to think differently than any species we've encountered. More flexible somehow." Captain Zexthai nodded. The journey to Nexus Station Alpha would take 3 weeks. Plenty of time to learn about these strange new beings and their mysterious toolkit. Dr. Quinara spent the first week studying the humans from a distance. She watched them eat, sleep, and interact with the crew. Everything about them seemed normal, yet different at the same time. They adapted to the ship's routine faster than any new species she had ever observed. The humans were curious about everything. They asked questions about the ship's systems, the different alien species, and galactic culture, but whenever anyone asked about their toolkit, they would smile and change the subject. "It's just tools," Lisa Murphy had said when Quinera asked directly. "Nothing special. Every human carries basic tools." Quinera found this hard to believe. Her scanners showed the toolkit contained simple metal objects. No energy sources, no advanced materials, no complex electronics. Just basic implements that seemed centuries behind galactic technology. On the 8th day, something happened that changed everything. The ship's main food processor broke down during the morning meal. The device was responsible for creating nutritious paste for all the different species aboard. Without it, the crew would have to survive on emergency rations that tasted terrible and barely provided enough nutrition. Chief Engineer Mordak, a large reptilian being from the Saurian Collective, stood in front of the broken machine shaking his head. "The quantum food matrix has collapsed," he announced to the gathered crew. "It will take at least a week to get replacement parts." The crew groaned. A week of emergency rations would make everyone miserable. "Mind if I take a look?" Lisa Murphy asked, stepping forward. Mordak looked at her with surprise. "You understand quantum food processing?" "Not really," Lisa admitted. "But I understand machines. They all work on the same basic principles." The chief engineer laughed, but not in a mean way. "This is advanced galactic technology. Your species has not even achieved faster than light travel yet." Lisa smiled. "Maybe not, but machines are machines. Can I look at it?" Mordak shrugged and stepped aside. Lisa knelt down and began examining the device. She didn't touch anything at first, just looked at how the parts connected. Her eyes moved from one component to another, following the flow of energy and materials. "The problem is here," she said, pointing to a small junction box. "The connection is loose. That's why your quantum matrix collapsed." Mordak looked where she was pointing. "Impossible. That connection cannot become loose. It is welded at the molecular level." "But it did become loose," Lisa said calmly. "Probably from vibration over time. The ship's engines create a specific frequency that would gradually weaken that type of connection." She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small metal tool. It looked like a simple screwdriver, but she used it in a way that amazed the watching aliens. With careful movements, she tightened the connection and made some small adjustments to nearby components. "Try it now," she said, stepping back. Mordak activated the food processor. It hummed to life, working perfectly. The crew cheered and applauded. Lisa just smiled and put her tool back in her pocket. "How did you do that?" Dr. Quinara asked. "Experience," Lisa replied. "I've been fixing things since I was a child. You learn to see how things work, how they fail, and how to fix them." The second incident happened a few days later. Pippin, a young Veltari crew member, was helping to reorganize the storage bay when a stack of heavy containers fell over. The containers were made of reinforced metal and were very heavy. Pippin was trapped underneath, unable to move. The crew gathered around, trying to figure out how to lift the containers without hurting Pippin. The containers were too heavy for most species to lift, and using the ship's mechanical lifters might crush the young Veltari. Jake Harrison appeared at the scene. He looked at the situation for a moment, then disappeared. He returned a few minutes later with a long metal bar from somewhere on the ship. "Excuse me," he said politely, moving through the crowd. He positioned the metal bar under one of the containers and found a small piece of debris to use as a fulcrum. With careful pressure, he began to lever the container up. "Someone help Pippin out," he said calmly, holding the container up with what seemed like minimal effort. Two crew members quickly pulled Pippin to safety. Jake lowered the container back down and helped the young Veltari to the medical bay. "How did you know to do that?" Captain Zexathai asked. "Basic physics," Jake replied. "Leverage. Give me a long enough lever and a place to stand and I can move anything." The captain was puzzled. "But how did you know exactly where to place the lever?" Jake smiled. "Practice. Humans have been using levers for thousands of years. You develop an instinct for it." These incidents made the crew look at the humans differently. They began to notice other things. When equipment needed maintenance, the humans would offer suggestions that seemed simple but were surprisingly effective. When problems arose, they would approach them from angles that the aliens had never considered. Dr. Quinara spent more time watching the humans work. She noticed that they didn't just use tools, they seemed to think with them. They would pick up objects and immediately see multiple ways to use them. A simple piece of metal could be a lever, a wedge, a scraper, or a dozen other things depending on what was needed. "They see possibilities," she told Captain Zexthai during one of their evening briefings. "Where we see a specific tool for a specific purpose, they see potential." The captain nodded thoughtfully. "Their toolkit is still sealed in their quarters. They haven't opened it once since coming aboard." "That's what puzzles me," Quinara said. "They carry these basic tools everywhere, but they never seem to need them. They can solve problems with whatever is available." The mystery deepened when Ryan Cole helped repair a small crack in one of the ship's viewing ports. He used a piece of food packaging and some cleaning solution to create a temporary seal that worked better than the engineering team's emergency patches. "Where did you learn to do that?" the ship's maintenance chief asked. "My father taught me," Ryan replied. "He always said that the best tool is the one you have with you, and the second best tool is whatever you can find lying around." As the ship continued its journey to Nexus Station Alpha, the crew began to realize that the humans possessed a kind of intelligence they had never encountered. It wasn't just knowledge or technology. It was a way of thinking that turned everything into a potential solution. But the toolkit remained unopened, its contents still a mystery. Nexus Station Alpha was massive. It stretched across space like a metal city, home to over 2 million beings from 40 different species. Docking bays covered its outer surface like windows on a building. Ships of every size and shape came and went constantly. Jake Harrison stood at the viewing port as the Harmony's Edge approached the station. "Impressive," he said to Captain Zexathai, who stood beside him. "Nexus Alpha is the heart of galactic trade and diplomacy," the captain explained. "Species from across the galaxy come here to do business and solve problems. And we have to go through security," Lisa Murphy added, joining them at the window. Captain Zexathai nodded. "All new species must be processed. It is standard procedure. You will be interviewed, tested, and registered in the galactic database." The docking process took 2 hours. The Harmony's Edge was assigned to Bay 73, deep inside the station's commercial section. As they prepared to disembark, the humans gathered their few belongings, including the sealed toolkit. Security Chief Vrakton was waiting for them at the airlock. He was a Braxton, standing nearly 8 feet tall with thick armor-like skin and small, intelligent eyes. Behind him stood a team of security officers from different species. "Welcome to Nexus Station Alpha," Vrakton said in a deep, formal voice. "I am Security Chief Vrakton. You must follow standard procedures for new species. Integration." The humans nodded politely. They had expected this. "All belongings must be scanned and catalogued," Vrakton continued. "This includes personal items, clothing, and any equipment you carry." Jake Harrison stepped forward. "We understand. We have nothing to hide." The security team led them to a processing center deep inside the station. It was a sterile white room filled with scanning equipment and computer terminals. Other aliens worked at various stations, processing newcomers from different species. The humans placed their belongings on scanning tables. Clothes, personal items, and electronic devices were examined and cleared quickly. Then came the toolkit. "What is this?" Vrakton asked, looking at the sealed metal box. "Basic tools," Mike Torres replied. "Standard human equipment." Vrakton activated a scanner and pointed it at the toolkit. Lights flashed and data appeared on screens. "The contents appear to be primitive metal implements," he announced to his team. "May we see inside?" asked scanner technician Zilara, a curious-looking being with large eyes and tentacle-like arms. The humans looked at each other. "If you insist," Jake said finally. "But they're really not that interesting." Lisa Murphy opened the toolkit's latches. The lid swung up, revealing the contents for the first time since they had boarded the Harmony's edge. The security team gathered around to look. Inside were rows of metal tools held in place by foam padding. Wrenches of different sizes, screwdrivers with various tips, pliers, wire cutters, a small torch, rolls of tape, plastic ties, bolts and screws, and other items that the aliens couldn't immediately identify. "Primitive fabrication tools," Vrakton stated after examining each item. "No energy sources detected, no advanced materials. Classification: harmless maintenance equipment." Zilara picked up an adjustable wrench and turned it over in her tentacles. "The construction is simple but effective. Basic mechanical advantage principles." "May I?" Dr. Quinara asked, stepping forward. She had come to observe the processing of her new research subjects. She examined several tools carefully. "Fascinating. Each tool appears designed for multiple functions. This cutting implement can also grip objects. This fastening tool can also be used for leverage." "That's the idea," Ryan Cole said. "Good tools do more than one job." The security team logged each item in their database. The computer system classified them as basic tools, no security risk. The entire process took an hour. "You are cleared for temporary residence," Vrakton announced. "You will be assigned quarters in Section C7. A cultural liaison will contact you tomorrow to begin integration procedures." The humans were given identification badges and a map of the station. They gathered their belongings, including the toolkit, and were escorted to their new quarters. Their living space was comfortable but small. 5 rooms connected to a common area, with basic furnishings suitable for human-like species. The toolkit was placed in the common area, sealed once again. For the next week, the humans explored the station and met representatives from various species. They attended cultural briefings, learned about galactic law, and began the process of requesting membership in the galactic community. Everything seemed peaceful and routine. Then the alarm started. Jake Harrison was in the station's observation deck when the emergency sirens began wailing. Red lights flashed throughout the corridors and announcement speakers crackled to life. "Attention all station residents. Security alert level, red. Hostile forces have infiltrated the station. All civilians report to designated safe areas immediately." Through the observation deck's windows, Jake could see security ships scrambling from the station's defense bays, but the threat wasn't outside. It was already inside. He ran back to their quarters, where the other humans were already gathering. The station's internal communication system was broadcasting updates. Kethmori pirates have taken control of the central hub, the announcer said. Approximately 20 hostiles armed with advanced energy weapons. They are holding station personnel and visitors hostage. Lisa Murphy was checking the station schematics on their room's computer terminal. The central hub controls life support, communications, and transportation for the entire station, she said. If they control that, they control everything. So, Kethmori were supposed to be extinct. They were a warrior species that had been wiped out in a galactic war 50 years ago. Apparently, some had survived and turned to piracy. What do they want? Karen Bell asked, listening to the security communications on a portable receiver. The release of their clan leader, Mike Torres replied. He's being held in a maximum security prison 3 systems away. Outside their quarters, they could hear other station residents moving through the corridors, following evacuation procedures. Security forces were organizing response teams, but the situation looked difficult. The pirates had chosen their position well. The central hub was heavily fortified and contained too many innocent hostages. A direct assault would result in massive casualties. Jake looked at his teammates. They all had the same expression, the look of people who saw a problem that needed solving. Well, he said quietly, I guess it's time to open the toolkit. The toolkit opened with a soft click. Jake Harrison reached inside and pulled out a small device that looked like a radio. He twisted a few dials and listened carefully to the static that came through the speaker. Security frequencies are jammed, he said quietly. But the pirates missed the maintenance channels. Lisa Murphy was already pulling tools from the kit. She selected wire cutters, electrical tape, and a small flashlight. How long do we have before they notice us moving around? Depends on their surveillance, Ryan Cole replied, studying the station schematics on the computer. They control the main security systems, but the backup sensors run on independent power. The other humans were gathering equipment with practiced efficiency. Each person took specific tools, as if they had done this many times before. They moved quietly and spoke in whispers. What's the plan? Karen Bell asked, checking her small medical kit. Jake looked at the station layout again. The central hub has 3 main access points. The pirates will be watching all of them, but maintenance tunnels run underneath the whole section. Maintenance tunnels? Mike Torres questioned. Every space station needs them, Lisa explained. Air recycling, water systems, power cables. They have to go somewhere. She pointed to thin lines on the schematic that most people would ignore. These passages connect every part of the station. The pirates probably don't even know they exist. Ryan was studying the power distribution charts. If we can access the main electrical junction, we can create selective blackouts, confuse them without hurting the hostages. Risky, Karen said. If we mess up the life support systems, we won't, Lisa assured her. I've worked on similar systems before. The trick is knowing which circuits control what. Jake attached a small antenna to his improvised radio device. First, we need to contact the hostages. Let them know help is coming. They left their quarters separately, each taking different routes through the station. To anyone watching, they looked like scared civilians trying to find safe places to hide. But they were actually moving toward specific locations throughout the station. Dr. Quinara was monitoring the crisis from the medical center when she noticed something odd on her sensors. The humans were not in their assigned safe area. Instead, they seemed to be scattered throughout the station, in areas that made no sense for hiding. She tried to track their movements, but they kept disappearing from her sensors and reappearing somewhere else. It was as if they knew exactly where the surveillance equipment was located. Lisa Murphy found the main electrical junction 3 levels below the central hub. It was hidden behind a maintenance panel that required a special tool to open. She used a modified screwdriver from the toolkit, turning it into the exact shape needed for the lock. Inside the junction box were hundreds of cables carrying power to different parts of the station. To most people, it would look like chaos. To Lisa, it was a map she could read like a book. She began cutting specific wires and reconnecting them with electrical tape. Each connection was precise, redirecting power flow in ways that the station's designers never intended. She worked quickly but carefully, knowing that one mistake could shut down life support for thousands of beings. Meanwhile, Ryan Cole had reached the air recycling system. Using zip ties from the toolkit, he was creating what looked like simple traps in the ventilation passages. But these weren't meant to catch people. They were designed to catch sound and movement, creating an early warning system. Jake Harrison had found his way to a communication relay station. Using parts from his toolkit and components he had quietly collected from around the station, he built a transmitter that could reach the hostages without going through the main communication system. "This is rescue team," he whispered into the device. "Can anyone hear me?" A voice crackled back through the static. "This is Station Commander Velik. Who is this? How are you reaching us?" "Friends," Jake replied. "We're coming to help. In 15 minutes, the lights will go out for exactly 30 seconds. When they come back on, stay low and be ready to move." Karen Bell was in position near one of the maintenance entrances to the central hub. She had used medical tape and metal components from the toolkit to create what looked like a small explosive device. It wasn't actually dangerous, but it would create a bright flash and loud noise when activated. Mike Torres had the most dangerous job. He was inside the maintenance tunnels directly under the central hub, listening to the pirates above through the metal floor. Using a stethoscope-like device he had improvised from toolkit parts, he could track their movements and count their numbers. Dr. Quinara watched all of this through the station's remaining sensors, amazed by what she was seeing. The humans weren't using advanced technology or following any standard rescue procedures. Instead, they were turning the station itself into their weapon. Every tool from their basic toolkit was being used in ways she had never imagined. Simple metal implements became precision instruments. Basic electrical components became sophisticated communication devices. Even tape and plastic ties became part of an elaborate plan. "Incredible," she whispered to herself. "They're not fighting the pirates. They're outsmarting them." The 15 minutes passed quickly. Throughout the station, the humans were in position. Lisa had finished rewiring the electrical system. Ryan's early warning network was active. Jake's communication system was ready. Karen's distraction device was prepared. Mike had mapped the pirates' positions. "Everyone ready?" Jake whispered into his radio. "Ready," came 4 quiet replies. "Then let's show them what a basic toolkit can really do." Lisa flipped the modified switch she had created. Every light in the central hub went dark for exactly 30 seconds. The pirates were blind and confused. When the lights came back on, everything had changed. The real rescue was about to begin. The lights flickered back on in the central hub. The 20 Keth Mori pirates looked around nervously, their energy weapons pointed at the 60 hostages huddled in the center of the room. Their leader, a scarred warrior named Graktor, snarled at his men. "Just a power fluctuation," he growled. "Keep watching the entrances." But something was different. Small sounds came from the walls and ceiling. Tiny clicking noises that hadn't been there before. The pirates couldn't see anything wrong, but they felt like they were being watched. Mike Torres was directly below them, listening through his improvised sound device. He could hear every word, track every movement. He whispered into his communicator. 20 targets confirmed, 12 near the hostages, 8 guarding the exits. Leader is in the center. Jake Harrison's voice crackled back through the maintenance channels. "Roger. Beginning phase 2. Throughout the station, the humans began their coordinated attack. But it wasn't like any military operation the galaxy had ever seen. Lisa Murphy activated the second part of her electrical modifications. Instead of turning off all the lights, she created a pattern of flickering that was almost invisible but very distracting. The pirates found themselves blinking and looking around, unable to focus properly. Ryan Cole's zip-tie network in the ventilation system started making noise. Soft tapping sounds came from different directions, making it seem like someone was crawling through the air ducts. The pirates aimed their weapons at the ceiling, but there was nothing to shoot at. Karen Bell activated her improvised flash device outside the hub's main entrance. It created a bright light and sharp bang that sounded like an explosion. Half the pirates spun toward the sound, leaving their positions. "Blast door 7, Graktor shouted. "They're trying to break in." But there was no one at blast door 7. While the pirates were distracted, Jake Harrison slipped through a maintenance hatch behind them. He used a wrench from the toolkit to quietly disable the door controls, trapping the pirates inside. The next phase was even more clever. Lisa's power modifications allowed her to control individual lights throughout the hub. She began turning them on and off in sequence, creating moving shadows that looked like people running through the corridors outside. The pirates were getting nervous. Their leader was shouting orders, but his men were jumping at every sound and shadow. They had expected to fight security forces with energy weapons and body armor. Instead, they were fighting ghosts and illusions. "Sir," one of the pirates called out, "the surveillance systems are showing movement everywhere, but when we look, there's nothing there." Graktor was a veteran warrior, but this was unlike any battle he had fought. "It's impossible. They can't be everywhere at once." That's when Mike Torres made his move. Using a small mirror attached to a wrench handle, he could see through tiny gaps in the floor panels. He waited until one of the guards moved away from the hostages, then used his zip ties to grab the pirate's ankle through the floor. The pirate crashed to the ground, his weapon skittering away. Before he could shout for help, a section of floor panel opened and Mike pulled him down into the maintenance tunnel. The pirate disappeared without a sound. The other pirates didn't notice at first. They were too busy watching for threats that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. By the time they realized one of their own was missing, 2 more had vanished the same way. "Where are they?" Graktor demanded. "Who are we fighting?" Station Commander Velak huddled with the other hostages, smiled grimly. "Humans," he said quietly. Dr. Quinara was watching everything from the medical center, her 4 eyes wide with amazement. The humans were taking apart a force of armed pirates using nothing but simple tools and creative thinking. They weren't overpowering their enemies. They were making them defeat themselves. The final phase was the most impressive. Karen Bell had made her way to the central hub's emergency systems. Using components from the toolkit, she had created a device that could trigger the fire suppression system in specific sections of the room. "Now," Jake whispered into his communicator. Karen activated her device. Foam began spraying from ceiling, nozzles directly over the remaining pirates. The foam wasn't harmful, but it blocked their vision and made the floor slippery. They stumbled and fell, their weapons firing harmlessly into the walls. Lisa cut the power to their energy weapons using her electrical modifications. The pirates found themselves holding useless pieces of metal. Ryan's zip-tie traps, now deployed from multiple directions, tangled their feet and arms. In less than 5 minutes, it was over. The 20 Kethmori pirates were secured with their own restraints, confused and defeated. Not one shot had been fired by the humans. No one was seriously injured. The hostages were free. Security Chief Raktan arrived with his team just as the humans were climbing out of their hiding places. He looked around the hub in bewilderment. "How did you do this?" Jake Harrison was packing tools back into the toolkit. "Teamwork," he said simply, "and the right tools for the job." "But these are primitive implements," Raktan protested. "Basic metal tools." Lisa Murphy smiled as she coiled up electrical tape. "That's the thing about basic tools. They can do anything if you know how to use them." The news of the rescue spread throughout the galaxy within hours. The story of 5 humans defeating 20 armed pirates with nothing but a basic toolkit became legendary. Galactic news services called it impossible. Military analysts studied the recordings for months, but Dr. Quinara understood what had really happened. She presented her findings to the Galactic Council 3 weeks later. "We have been thinking about tools wrong," she explained to the assembled representatives. "We create specialized devices for specific purposes. Humans create simple tools that can be adapted for any purpose." She displayed images of the toolkit contents on the main screen. What we see as primitive, they see as potential. Every tool is actually dozens of tools, limited only by imagination and need. The galactic community faced a paradigm shift. Species that had spent centuries developing advanced technology suddenly realized they might have been missing something important. Human innovation centers were established on major worlds, where other species could learn not just about human tools, but about human thinking. Jake Harrison became the first human ambassador to the Galactic Council. On his first day, he placed a simple toolkit on the ambassador's desk. Humanity's greatest strength, he told the Council, isn't our technology. It's our ability to see solutions where others see problems. The toolkit remained there as a symbol, a reminder that sometimes the most basic tools, in the right hands, could accomplish the impossible. And throughout the galaxy, young beings of all species began to look at their own simple tools with new eyes, wondering what amazing things they might accomplish if they just learned to think like humans.